Hey guys, how are ya? Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you could hear me, just go ahead, type in the chat for attendance that you are here. Very good. Good. So we'll wait a bit, we'll just do our weekly check-in, see how you're all doing as kind of students enter in. But just make sure you type here so I know that you are here. And I can give you guys credit. I'll make sure I give you guys credit for last week as well. Yeah, if you were in attendance. But yeah, if you could hear me, like I said, type in here just so I know that you all could hear me. Mics are working. My mic is working. My camera is working. And you could also see the PowerPoint. Very good. Very good. Good. So we'll get started. Just today, what we're going to do is we'll start off doing our check-in. I'll go over our schedule. We'll talk about the cause and effects of the Great Depression. And yeah, so let's get some of you guys just to share how everything is going, something positive, and how our class is going. I do like hearing you guys speak. So, if your mic isn't working, you could type it in the chat box. But if your mic is working, just hit the raise your hand button. I'll call on you. Otherwise, I'll call on some random people just to kind of give me something positive for a week, something that's perhaps new. Anyone want to volunteer? Just hit the raise your hand button. Anybody? So I know we do a weekly check-in every time, but sometimes there are some new things. Let's go with Malika. How's everything going? Oh, is your microphone working? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I guess positive, because I found a way to maintain my schedule and turn in my assignments on time.
Mm-hmm.
And negative because some family members, some of my mom's old friends that she knew kind of passed away because of the virus. Mm-hmm. So yeah, because they're in Europe, so it's a long story.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that. I'll definitely keep your family in my thoughts. It is a tough time, I think, for everybody, in terms of just, the pro is at least we get to spend time with family members, but at the same time, it's also just the health of family members is also a major concern. But I'm glad to hear that you are, able to kind of get in a consistent schedule. I think that's very important during these times, as we've discussed before. And I'm glad that you're able to get those assignments in. It's been a little bit less stress. Thank you. Let's go with Aisa. How's everything going? How are classes? And if you could just share something positive.
Hello.
Hi, Aisa.
To be honest, I think that my easiest classes is math.
Mm-hmm.
For me, because it doesn't consist of reading out of a book or anything. And then a positive for me is I guess I was expecting my grades to look worse than what they did when they came in. Mm-hmm. But a negative for me is I've fallen behind in both history and physiology. And I'm trying to catch up, but it's harder to catch up and keep up than it is to just catch up or just stay on top of your work. So I'm really just trying to find a good place to start. And there is no good place to start. So I'm really just trying to figure out a schedule that's best for me, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And another thing is, I guess with history, especially for me, I need someone to actually bounce ideas off of and actually talk to about my work. And I just talked to my grandparents about that. And they did say they're willing to sit down and do that one-on-one with me. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that it is. It's just harder for me to really comprehend the reading in the book. And then the Zooms, I haven't really been on them, but the one that I think this is my second one I've been on. Yeah. So, it's not the same as in class.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. But overall, my family's doing good. It's a little hard, just adjusting to staying in the house. But, every day I just wake up and I just remind myself that I'm thankful that I have a home to wake up in. There are a lot of people who have it worse. So just being thankful and remembering that, and just being thankful for what I do have and being thankful for the predicament that I am in, because it could be much worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Aisa. And yeah, I think I think the most important thing that you said is uh, that you are thankful for a lot of things that you do have. And I think that during these times, that's what we really need to look at is just the things that matter. We need to make sure that we prioritize. I mean, I could for myself, and I think I could speak for most teachers is academics is important. We definitely want to make sure that you're ready for your senior year as well as you're ready for college. And it's tough. It's tough just transitioning to online learning. It really is. It's tough for teachers. It's tough for students. I miss having that one-on-one experience of being able to walk around and chat with you guys. And it's difficult. And we'll roll with the punches. We'll do the best that we can. If you've fallen behind, we'll catch you up. We'll create a plan for you. But the priority is just making sure that your well-being is the most important, right? Because if you're not happy and and you're not doing well in terms of your health, it's going to be tough to focus on academics. So just make sure you're taking care of yourself. A lot of you guys have talked about creating a schedule. Just make sure in your schedule that you kind of leave time for yourself to do something that you enjoy, whether it's watching something on Netflix, whether it's chatting with your friends, whether it's playing a video game, because if you set too stringent of a schedule, it's going to be very tough for you, right? So thank you for sharing. Let's get maybe one or two more, and then after that we'll move on. Let's go Pierre. How's everything going?
Everything's okay. I've just been really tired, and it's been really frustrating with some of my classes because some of my teachers don't explain what we're supposed to do with the assignment. So I had to ask my classmates how do we do the assignment so I can finish it. But overall, I'm fine. I've accomplished so much yesterday. I'm proud of myself. And just like what Aisha said, as much as I don't like staying home, I'm actually thankful that I have a home to go to because other people don't have a home to stay at.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I think one thing that you said that really stands out to me is that you're proud of yourself. And you all got to be proud of yourself. This is not the time to beat each other or just to beat yourselves up about how you're doing, because we haven't experienced anything like this in the last 100 years. It's very difficult. And especially for you students, I mean, this is the first time when we're getting everybody just moving remote and still continuing with school. So it's a transition, and there's frustration with it, and I want you all to kind of just accept that that sometimes it could be very difficult, and it's not you, it isn't you, right? So count your blessings, because I think we could at least be thankful for one thing. You know what I mean? I mean, even the fact that you're here right now. I mean, that's very. I'm thankful for that. Is that hey, I mean, we all have somebody. I mean, that you could discuss and talk to. Even if it's just venting about some of the issues that you might be experiencing. I mean, hey, if you wanted to vent to me and you want to just write me an email, hey, Mr. Burba, this is how everything's going, yada yada yada. I mean, that's a great thing is you guys have that support system at the MHS, right? And take advantage of that. Okay. I'll share. So everything is going all right for me. My classes are going okay. I mean, like you said, you gotta just make sure you find a rhythm and a balance. And that's tough to do sometimes. I mean, I'm probably going on maybe like 2-3 hours of sleep, not much at all. But the positive is my wife and I, we created a it's not even a rap song. We just made a history song for you guys. And the topic is on the Great Depression. So at the end of class today, you'll see that song. We'll analyze the lyrics, and I'm actually proud of this one. sometimes I'll hear my history rap songs and I'm just like, wow, that's just bad. But this one, we took time on it. She actually took more time on it than I did. I mean, she's more patient than I am. Yeah, so we will. I'll play it. So it's a video. I'll play it for you guys because I think it's so that way you can follow along with the lyrics. Because if I rap it myself, I'll probably mess up. All right. But let's go through our schedule. All right. So let's see. So remember, this is your go-to right here. This is posted on Schoology. It's titled Burba's Quarantine Speech. I've sent it to you guys, and I always give you guys a weekly rundown. So if you fall behind, this is a nice week. This is a nice week for you to kind of play catch up. And remember, you're not penalized for things that you didn't do. But I do recommend, I mean, what I mean by that is, like, let's say if you're at 90% before May 13th, remember, you've gotten that A. But at the same time, immerse yourself in the learning experience. Go through the educational process. Kind of like what Aisa was saying is, we missed that one-on-one interaction. But one thing is you'll notice here is I do have office hours. My office hours are always posted. They're right here. So at any of those times, if you want to touch base, we could either do a Zoom session as long as there's more than one of you guys there. So like, let's say, for example, if Ashley and Elka wanted to do a Zoom session for me to go over the content, we could do that, right? Just let me know. Give me a heads up. We can make sure that we touch base on that. So looking through here, so we are on this week today. We are on, here it is. So for today, what I wanted you guys to do is hopefully you had written chapter 48, or hopefully you've read chapter 48 and 49, and you've taken those notes. If you didn't get a chance to do that, make sure that you do. If you've fallen behind, just like, for example, what Aisa was saying, was I recommend that you do is you go back to these previous chapters and just read through and take those notes. Don't worry about these essays for the time being. Just go back and get the content, right? And then what we will do is, from this point on, we'll get you caught up in just crafting those essays. Because I think the most important part of those essays, I mean, yes, the content is, but making sure you're structuring your responses where I can clearly see what your argument is. I still have to go through 2 more of your essays, so that's why I'm not giving you an essay this week, is because I want to be able to read through them and give you guys feedback. But go back in that last essay that I gave you, if you haven't yet, look at the feedback. The thing that I saw a lot of students messing up on is just tying everything back to your thesis, tying everything back to your argument. I'd say, a good high school, or most high school students, they just want to give me what happened. But strong writers, what they're able to do is craft an argument and connect it. And some of you guys have done that. I love to recognize people that have done a great job with that. So I'll 2 examples that I have, I'd say, like Annie and Raina. I mean, both your essays are wow. Like, just every piece of evidence has been tied back to a thesis, where I would say, you're writing probably at like the sophomore college level at least. So keep up that good work. And that's not just them two. I mean, almost a lot of you guys are. If you feel like you want me to look over a draft, send me an email. I'll look it over. And I'll try my best to get it back to you in a timely manner. It is more difficult right now that we are remote, because it's just tough, being on that schedule. So that's what I recommend that you do. So for this week, there aren't really any new assignments. Chapter 48 to 49, there is no essay this week. I'm going to give you guys, though, in our lesson, the possible essay that it might be for next week, right? You'll have 2 essays to choose from for next week, one on the Great Depression and the other one on World War II. So if you want to get a head start, you definitely can. But everything I tie to today will connect to that essay. Are there any questions at all? If there are no questions, just type no. So just tap, very good. And Alka, another one your essays were right on. Wow. You're looking at college level writing. Next week, no, you only have 1, but you get to choose which one that you want to do. So we do have that choice. So you could either do World War II or the Great Depression. Yeah. Good. So let's get started then. So here is the question. One of the questions that you could focus on for next week is explain the causes and effects of the Great Depression. Explain the causes and the effects of the Great Depression, right? So what I want you to do right now is let's talk about current events. In the news, everyone's kind of talking about a recession, Great Depression. And I think it's important for us to make the connection between then and now, right? So what I'd like you guys to do, just watch a short 2-minute clip, take notes on it, just reflect, write down what things stand out to you, maybe your stance on this, right? We'll get into some conversation about that. And then afterwards, what we will go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and I'll hear some of your thoughts, right? Questions. So here's the video. Can you guys see that okay? Just type yes or no. Excellent. I'll put in full screen for you. And this is actually from last week.
In the U.S., growing fury at the still shut down economy. This demonstration today in Lansing, Michigan, slamming the strict guidelines to stay at home, demanding a return to normal in the face of experts who warn it's still too early for that.
Our community is struggling. We want to go back to work. We have employees. We have paychecks to issue. We have bills to pay. The only stores open are Walmart? That's ridiculous.
It's time to open up. The sick are being taken care of. If you're sick, stay home and in your house. The ones that can work need to work.
Elsewhere, desperation. Check this monster lineup for food in Austin, Texas, with handouts to those who've already run out of everything. And outside Los Angeles, more cars, in the many hundreds. Said one volunteer they'll keep giving until the food runs out.
We'll be the comeback kids.
Tonight, Donald Trump said there's been enough progress on COVID that he'll announce tomorrow new guidelines on reopening the economy.
We want to get our country back, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it soon.
Health officials have warned reopening too soon risks a resurgence of COVID. These images are from Maryland just this week. And Washington, D.C. today extended its stay-at-home orders until mid-May.
We're still in the woods.
In New York today, Governor Andrew Cuomo said he's now ordering all New Yorkers to carry masks whenever they step outside.
And they must wear it in a situation where you cannot or are not maintaining social distancing.
Still, Trump said tonight the U.S., which leads the world in coronavirus deaths, is now past the peak on new cases. He said his announcement tomorrow, perhaps naming states that can soon reopen, will be very exciting. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
All right. So what I'd like you guys to do...
I'm going to show you how to take this old dresser drawer.
Go ahead and just to reflect on that video. You have a couple options that you could do. If you want to just write down what stood out to you in the video, maybe sum it up. If you want to tell me your stance on the video, go ahead. But go for it. Or if you want to raise your hand and say so vocally, go ahead and do that. But you guys about a minute. Go ahead and just reflect, and then we'll tie everything into our historical content. So while we're doing that, we'll listen to some music. So I'll give you guys about 1 minute, like I said, and Elka, you're first to go. Let me get you guys some music. We'll listen to some John Lennon.
Imagine there's no heaven. See if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people
All right. Alika, I promise you could go first. Go for it. Share.
I mean, like I said, this is very upsetting because like I saw how some people, this one lady was saying how like you should just stay home if you're sick, and if you're not, you should just come out and work. And as previously known, some of the symptoms of the COVID-19 is not even shown like right away. So you could be sick without knowing and transfer that to so many other people. And a lot of people, I understand the struggle of like not being able to work and not like it, and like being really financially unstable. But like this is why the government is also supplying out like lost unemployment money to people that are in need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good. So a couple things that you brought up that I think are very powerful is that, I mean, I love the reference that you made to the video where one of the protesters said that, hey, if you're not sick, that you should go to work, right? However, one of the main concerns is we don't know who is sick, right? There's not enough tests for people to take to be able to be diagnosed with the virus or not, right? And you might not even show symptoms, right? So I think that's something that's very important that you brought up. Thank you for sharing. Let's go, Alfredo. Can you kind of just share, just verbally?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, why I see why I do see the point of reopening up the economy. It shouldn't be done this early because, first of all, Trump said that it's we're past the peak, which is false. Health officials have said that if we do reopen too soon, it could cause a resurgence. Also, people are ignorant because, like as Alika said, people can't just stay home if they're sick because some people may have the virus but not showing any symptoms, and thus they could infect other people without even knowing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing is that I think you all said, and Jennifer kind of stated this in her statement, that people want to go back to work and they're angry about staying home. The main reason, so you're getting two arguments here. You're getting one argument that's saying, hey, we need to make sure that we're staying home because this virus should not spread, right? We need to make sure that we're containing this. Then you're getting the other argument that's saying, hey, people have the right to work. Is that in some ways the cure for this is actually worse than the virus itself, that we're not able to work, therefore we're losing our livelihood. And then you have the government that's trying to kind of balance these two things, right? Where the government has gone ahead and they've tried to give stimulus, or they have given stimulus checks, $1,200 to $2,400, which in some cases, I mean, if you're in Los Angeles, rent is so high, that's only going to cover you sometimes for 1 month, right? So this is kind of where we're at. And you'll hear these terms that are kind of stated, the Great Depression and recession, right? And we're going to talk about those effects, right? What happens when you're in a recession? What happens when you're in the Great Depression? I was a college student. Actually, my first year teaching was during the recession. And out of, I'd say close to 70 teachers that I graduated with, I was maybe like 1 out of 7 that were able to get a job teaching because there were no jobs available and it was very difficult. So we're going to make some of those comparisons today. Any questions at all about that? If there are no questions, just type no. Excellent. Very good. So one of the things that you could mention here is you could mention this as the effects of the Great Depression. Effects of the Great Depression. All right. So to put this video into context, the last thing we were talking about, World War I. Just right now in the chat box, I want to make sure we're on the same page. Did Germany win or did they lose World War I? Win or lose World War I? Very good. So they lost. It was a huge loss. One of the things that they would have to do was pay reparations. Pay reparations. What do I mean by reparations? And feel free to type that in the chat box. What do we mean by reparations? What do we mean by that? It's a word that you'll see. We've talked about it before. Yeah, they got to pay. So Germany, right before the Great Depression, they would have to pay for reparations, right? This is going to be one huge effect of, or cause, and even you could say it'll later be an effect of the Great Depression. So what I'd like you guys to do is just go ahead, and I want you to take notes on this video and just explain the impact of these reparations, that they have to pay for the damages that were caused, right? Because there's a huge, huge problem with this, right? So here we go. Here we go.
Scenes from the Western Front. Millions died on the battlefields of World War I, also known as the Great War, and the war to end all wars. It was marked by brutal trench warfare, stretching from the summer of 1914 and finally ending in late 1918. Now, more than 90 years later, comes the final payment. On Sunday, Germany is set to pay off the last of its debt from the war on the 20th anniversary of German reunification. The final $94 million installment will close a 92-year chapter that saw Germany plunge into totalitarian dictatorship and trigger a Second World War that ended with its division during 4 decades of the Cold War. The Treaty of Versailles, a peace settlement signed by Germany and the Allies in 1919, made Germany solely responsible for World War I. The sum was eventually fixed in 1921 at some £6.6 billion, a vast sum for the time, which many historians argue was beyond Germany's ability to pay. The heavy burden unleashed massive resentment in Germany and helped fuel the rise of Adolf Hitler and his Nazi Party. Germany stopped paying the reparations under the Nazis, and the Western Allies, the United States, France, and Britain, reached a new agreement on Germany's foreign debts in 1953. Now, while the payment on the war may be final, there was little that was final about the war to end all wars. Deborah Luderbeck, Reuters.
Right. So I want you, any guesses when Germany made their last World War I reparation payment? Any guesses? So World War I, you're looking, ended 1918. 1918 was right around the time it ended. Treaty of Versailles was passed 1919, 1920, and then they said, Germany, you got to pay for all the damages in the war. Any guesses when they made that final payment? Just write in the chat box. Most students get it wrong, I'll be honest with you, but I want to hear those guesses. So when was you think they? Okay, that's a very good guess, 1950, but nope, later than that. Later in 2006 is good. Later than 2006. You're looking about 2009 to 2010, right around that time. Yeah, very good. You're looking all that time it took them to pay that. So one thing you want to understand here, I'm going to give you the cause, right? So one of the causes of the Great Depression is this. It's going to lead to the rise of Adolf Hitler. The Great Depression is going to lead to the rise of Adolf Hitler because they have to pay all these reparations. Germany's economy is being starved to death, and they're looking for a strong leader to kind of bring back the pride. So Hitler comes to power, right? I mean, there's more complexity with that. I mean, if we had more time and we were actually at school, we would spend some time with that. But just because we are only doing one Zoom session a week and I can't see you guys, we actually have an awesome simulation that I used to do with my kids where I was able to brainwash them to kind of follow some of the same norms as not I wouldn't say the Nazi Party did, but as the Nazi youth did, just the conformity. And it was kind of scary. But a lot of these, the reason why some of this happened was because the Great Depression and reparations. Germany could not pay back all of these, so therefore they were looking for a strong leader. So you could write that as one of your effects of the Great Depression. Questions on that? If there are questions, just type yes so I could wait. If there are no questions, type no. Okay. So that's one thing you could write on your essay, right? You could also use a Treaty of Versailles, World War I as context for your essay, right? So for that essay in the Great Depression, you could mention, so the Great Depression is happening worldwide, so you could mention it. So I'm going to let you do it in a global landscape. Good question, Isabel. What do you see? What's going on here? Any predictions? You could kind of use this as the effect of the Great Depression. And this is happening specifically in Germany because Germany's probably hit the hardest. What do you notice? What does this look like right here that's in her hand? Yes, Alfredo is exactly right. What's going on here in Germany? They're burning money. Why would they're burning money for fuel, right? Because the economy was so bad that what happened was the value of the dollar or the value of the Reichsmark had actually gone to nothing. The value was so low that it was more convenient to burn the money rather than wood or fire. That's how bad the economy had gotten. So you want to think about this today. I don't want to scare anybody, but something to think about is eventually what's going to happen is let's say if we were to get into a recession or a depression, one of the things that we'd have to be concerned about is the value of currency, right? If you continue to print so much money and give all this, is eventually what we need to be concerned about is would the value of that go down, right? So those are some things to be concerned about. So yeah, I mean, if you actually wanted to buy like a loaf of bread, you would have to bring in like close to 1 million of these. That's how bad it was. Okay, so this is one of the causes that you could write for for the depression. This is a very complex diagram here, but what this explains is how reparations are being paid for, how Germany is paying Great Britain and France for the reparations. So I'm going to give you some context, and I want you to try to explain this to me. This is pretty complex, so if you're struggling with it, it's okay. But so really quick, Great Britain and France owe us a lot of money. Why do they owe us a lot of money? Why does Great Britain and France, right before the Great Depression, why do they owe us so much money? Well, what do you think? What might be a reason why? Any guesses? Yes, Isabel, can you elaborate?
It's basically kind of like they basically owed America because it said in the online book thing that a lot of some people said like, oh, if America hadn't joined in, then Britain didn't feel like they would have actually won
Very
because
good.
the side had a lot of
Yeah, so you're breaking up a little bit, but I think I was able to get the last thing that you said. And the most important thing is Great Britain and France, they were against Germany. Remember, they owe us a lot of money because we lent them a lot of money. We lent them a lot of weapons. And now what we want is we want that money back. We want that money back. So Great Britain and France have to pay us back. So what I want you to do is I want you to explain this. So U.S. investors or bankers, I want you to explain how it is that Germany is paying us, how Great Britain and France, they're able to pay us back for World War I, because this in some ways is going to lead us to the Great Depression. So give you some time, write it in the chat box. How is Great Britain and France able to pay us back? Give you about a minute, then I'll explain this diagram to you. Take a guess. This is a lot of kids struggle with this diagram, so if you get it, good work. Yeah, how does it work? How are they paying? What does it represent? How is Great Britain and France able to pay us back? Excellent. Raina, can you just kind of elaborate, just explain what you said?
So what I said was basically that the reason the U.S. is getting paid by Great Britain and France would be because they're getting that money from reparations that Germany is paying them. But the only reason Germany can pay them is because they're getting private loans from the Wall Street bankers, which comes from the U.S. So it would be technically like the U.S. is kind of paying their own debt in a way.
Yeah, very good. Right on. Perfect. So what we end up getting here is you're getting these bankers, these Wall Street bankers, they're giving private loans to Germany. So keep this in mind. The reason why you want to give a loan to somebody is because they have to pay you back interest, right? So that's what our bank wants. These private banks, what they're doing is, hey, Germany, we're going to give you this money so you could go ahead and pay back Great Britain and France, right? So eventually what Germany is going to have to do is they're going to have to pay these loans back. The goal is once Germany gets back on their feet, they'll pay these investors back. Well, here's what happened. Great Britain goes ahead and France, they obtain these reparation payments from Germany. And then what they end up doing is, hey, United States, the government, we owe you money, so we'll go ahead and give this. So ideally what's happening is Great Britain and France, or ideally what's happening is it's the U.S. investors that are paying off this debt. That's how it's happening. Our government is getting more wealthy. It's getting these payments back specifically from the banks, right? But in some ways, this is beneficial here. This is beneficial for this exact time because Germany is getting paid. France and Britain are getting paid, which means the United States government is getting paid. And these U.S. banks are doing fine. Eventually, their prediction is they're going to get paid in the future, right? Does that make sense? Just type yes, no. Very good. So I've given you guys this PowerPoint. What you could actually do is this. This is actually called, the Dawes Plan. So you could kind of bring this up. You could use this as context. We could talk about you could use this as a cause in a minute too, right? Of the Great Depression. So to sum it up here, this is what you need to know when I'm highlighting the Dawes Plan. It's a cycle. U.S. bankers loan money to Germany. Germany pays reparations to France and Britain. Then those allies pay us the war debt. Now, this is why this is very problematic, though. This is how you want to argue in some ways that this is a cause. Is because of this, a tariff, right? What the United States is also doing is we've passed the Ford-Niebuhr tariff law, right? I mean, if you just write in your essay as tariffs, that's fine. What is a tariff? Write it in the chat box. What is a tariff? What is a tariff? It's a tax. Yeah. It's a tax on imported goods. So in this case, this is a tax on European goods. So here's what the United States is doing. We wanted to support American business. That was the goal, right? So what we're doing is lobbyists want it. So these are people that are trying to influence Congress, and they're successful. What they want to do is they want to increase the tax on European goods from 27 to 38.5%. So people will buy American goods. Why is that problematic for Europe? Why is that problematic for Europe? Is that hurting or helping the European economy? That we're putting an import tax on them. What do you think? Why? Yeah, this is definitely hurting them. This is definitely hurting them. So they can't pay back that debt even more, right? It's definitely hurting places like Germany. It's hurting Great Britain and France. If you were an American, you were not going to buy a European good, right? At the same time, what Europe does is they retaliate by taxing our goods. So in fact, if you wanted to buy a Ford Model T in France, there was a 60% tax on that. So imagine if you were to buy a, let's say if you were to buy, let's say a Model T, let's say it was $100 back then. You would have to pay $160 because there was a 60% tax on it. So this was in some ways hurting both economies. It was hurting both economies because there was a lack of trade that was going on. And once we get to the Great Depression, it makes it more difficult to bounce back because people weren't necessarily buying goods. So what you would want to write in your essay, one of the things that was a cause of the Great Depression was tariff laws, is that foreign trade was weak, right? As a result of foreign trade being weak, it made it more difficult for Britain and France to pay back the United States, right? Questions at all about that? So that was cause to the Great Depression. Any questions? Yeah, definitely. I mean, people aren't buying imported goods. You're not going to want to buy a good. I mean, if you're going to buy a good from Great Britain or British good, it's going to cost you a lot of money. I mean, if you had the money, go ahead and do it. But for a lot of people, no. I mean, if you're getting like the top 1%, The people that we talked about in the Gilded Age, like the Carnegies, all those families, sure, they would still do it. But if you're looking at like the middle class, lower class, no, they're not going to. All right. But people still did spend a lot of money. Even if you were middle and lower class, one of the causes, which is overinvestment, right? People were spending their money and they shouldn't have been spending their money. So this video is probably what's going to help you most on your essay for the causes. So just take good notes on this. If you missed something, remember, I'll upload this video so you can watch it again. But this is one thing that you want to mention. This goes over a lot of the causes. So I'm going to go ahead and play that video. Here we go. I knew that was going to happen. Here we go.
The causes of the Great Depression.
Great Depression.
The 1930s saw a prolonged period of economic difficulties known as the Great Depression. What caused the Great Depression? Could it have been prevented? In the 1920s, the United States was becoming the world's leading economic nation. The European nations had been devastated by World War I, and America was prospering. The introduction of electricity to American homes had revolutionized day-to-day life. Electric washing machines, vacuum cleaners, irons, radios, and refrigerators were all in high demand. Increased advertising on the radio and in magazines only strengthened this desire for new devices. Advertisers were stressing to the American people that they just might be the last family on the block to have the latest, greatest product. Americans found themselves needing items that, just a few years before, did not even exist. Unfortunately for consumers, many of these items were far too expensive for the average person to buy. A family might have to save for years to purchase a washing machine or an automobile. This led to the development of installment buying, or buying on credit. A consumer would purchase an item by making a small down payment and pay off the rest in monthly installments. This allowed families to own items that they could only dream of otherwise. Consumers weren't the only ones buying on installment. This same method of purchasing was being used in the stock market. Investors would purchase stocks from a broker, paying as little as 10% of the stock's price. As long as the stock price continued to rise, they could pay off the balance with little difficulty. The stock itself would serve as collateral, meaning if the stock price fell, they would lose the stock and still have to pay off the loan. This method of purchasing was known as buying on margin. In the 1920s, more and more people were turning to the stock market as a method of making fast income. By 1929, it was estimated that about 4 million Americans were invested in the stock market. Many of these inexperienced investors were also engaging in speculation. This meant they were gambling financially with high-risk stocks. If the stocks became successful, it meant quick profits. However, speculating on stocks, combined with buying those stocks on margin, could mean financial doom for investors if the stock market took a turn for the worse. That is exactly what happened in the fall of 1929. In the last week of October, the stock market began to fail. Nervous investors began to sell their stocks rapidly, which intensified the problem. On October 29, 1929, the stock market collapsed. This day is remembered as Black Tuesday. Banks were crippled by the stock market crash. In all, 641 banks closed by the end of 1929. More than 5,000 would close in the next several years. Many banks might have survived, but with so many closing, Americans panicked. They rushed to their own bank to withdraw their money, fearing it was about to shut down. This is known as a run on the bank. With no money to operate with, the bank was forced out of business. This cycle of disaster only continued. Once consumerism slowed, salespeople were laid off. Many who worked in manufacturing also lost their jobs or had their hours and pay severely cut. As the Depression deepened, millions of these employees were laid off. With no income, the average citizen could no longer afford to repay the debts they had incurred through buying on installment. Since no one was repaying their debts, this crippled even more businesses and financial institutions. The end result was millions more losing their jobs.
All right. There was a lot there. So I want you to, because remember, I'll take this chat box and I'll throw it in the comment section on the video so you could go back and look at it. Go ahead, write down what were the causes, and if you wanted to write down effects as well. Main things I think that you really want to focus on, if you could mention that in your answer, is buying on installment and buying on margin. Those are two things that kind of students that I think that they struggle with, so I want to make sure that you understand it. So go ahead, just tell me what were the causes and effects. Throw it in the chat box and we'll discuss. We'll put on some more music for you.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your home.
Good. Try to mention buying on margin and buying an installment. If you want to Google those terms, feel free to do so.
Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You were made to go out and get her. The minute you let her under your skin, then you begin to make it better. At any time you feel the pain, hey Jude, don't carry the world upon your shoulder. For well you know that it's a fool who plays it cool by making his world a little colder. Hey Jude, don't let me down. You have found where I'll go and get her. Remember, hey, to let her into your heart. Then you can start to make it better.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. All these are correct, and you definitely mentioned them in your essay. So let's start off by buying on installments. Itzel, can you share? Because perfect timing with your answer there. That's, I think, very important. We want to understand. Go for it.
I was gonna say installments are like a smarter way to buy things at the time because people couldn't afford to pay full price because they had just lost their savings and the rest of their money.
Yeah, very good. And even before the Great Depression, people were buying things on installment. The Roaring 20s, remember, this was a time of American consumption of goods. You're getting things such as the radio, right? You're getting refrigerators. People wanted to buy these things. They're like, yeah. You know, the thing is, they can't afford them, right? There was a lot of wealth inequality. But so what people would do, just like Itzel said, buying installment means that you would go ahead and you would maybe put a down payment, but then you would pay monthly a certain amount for it, right? I mean, that's ideally how a credit card works, right? I mean, if you buy something, so for example, like when I bought my car, I mean, I'm buying it on installment, put a down payment down, right? A certain amount of money, and then every month I pay some of that off, right? I mean, this is a lot. I mean, there's a lot of good advertising back then. Even now, they're just saying, go ahead and do this. But here's the problem. If when people were losing their jobs, they couldn't make those payments. And when people couldn't make those payments, what's going to happen to those businesses? They're going to what? Just type in a chat box. So people can't make those payments for buying on installment. What's going to happen to those businesses? Yeah, those businesses, I mean, so people, they're going to go in large debt, and what's going to happen? They're going to go out of business. They're going to go ahead and people are going to lose jobs. So that's what happened with the Great Depression. Right? That's one thing, is people were buying things on installment, and it was kind of this cycle where as a result of them not being able to make these payments, eventually all of them would go out of business. Another thing what they said was buying on margin. How did buying on margin work? And this is how it worked with the stock market. What could you do in the stock market? What does it mean by buying on margin? Anyone get that? What do you think? Any guesses? Yeah, so they were taking out loans to buy these new inventions, and then eventually when the stock market crashed, they can't pay those back, right? Very good. So Raina says pay 10% of the stock and pay the rest as it rose. Very good. So this is how stock market works, right? The stock market works where you buy stock, like so for example, right now, let's say hypothetically, Tesla. Let's say if I wanted to buy Tesla stock. I don't know the price of it, but let's say if it was $100, nice even number. If I go ahead and put in $100 on Tesla, buy one stock of it, my goal is maybe in a few months, maybe in a few years, that stock is going to be worth 400, right? So now I've went ahead and made $300 in profit. Beautiful, okay? So what people were doing here is they were buying their stock on margin or installment. So let's say if my stock was worth $100, I might only pay $10 a month of that. Then eventually, after 10 months, it might be all paid off. But here's the biggest issue. When the stock market crashes, you would still owe the price that you bought that stock for, right? And that's a huge problem. I mean, the goal is, before this, the stock market was doing well. So for example, if I were to buy stock that was $100, and now all of a sudden, let's say it went up the next month to $200, bam, it's paid for already. But that was no longer happening. As a result of the stock market crashing, people were losing all their money, right? Questions on that? So in short, causes of Great Depression. Number one, stock market crashes. That's the most important thing. The stock market crashes, one of the reasons why is because of a lack of foreign trade, those tariffs, right? The effects, right? And you could also even bring this up with causes as well. Buying on installment, buying on margin. And when people go to these banks, what happens to the banks? Anyone get that? When they go to the banks, what happens? What do you think? What happens? Elika, any idea what happens with the banks when people? Yeah, Ashley, let's go. We'll go Ashley because we haven't heard from Ashley. Ashley, can you explain?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So basically, banks were had to close because many of the customers were withdrawing their money.
Yeah, the banks don't have enough money, right? I mean, they've went ahead and they've invested. So whenever you go, so I mean, when you have your money in the bank, what the bank ends up doing at any time is they would invest that money, and then the hope is that not everyone is going to go ahead and try to withdraw their money all at one time. Because periodically what happens is only a few people will take out their money. But when the stock market crashes, everyone wants to go to the bank. And they go ahead and the bank can't pay them. So let's say you put all of your life savings in that bank. And even though you may have not invested in the stock market, guess what? That bank has lost your money. The bank has lost your money. Isn't that crazy? Imagine if you maybe played your cards right. You didn't buy things in installment. And you never gambled in the stock market, and now you want to go rush to the bank, and now your money is gone. That's why you'll hear stories today, maybe of like the older generation that lived during the Great Depression, where when they die, like when they're older, they have like $10,000 underneath their mattress, right? Is because they don't trust the bank, okay? Questions at all about that? So the facts, banks go out of business because too many people want to withdraw, okay? All right. So you can take a look at this here. So what this is actually looking at the price of stocks. So you're looking at the stock market. What do you notice happens in 1929 with the stock market? Does the value of the stock market go up or down? It definitely goes down. There's a huge plummet in terms of the stock market. And then it starts to go up right under Franklin Delano Roosevelt's election. So that's one of the things that we'll go about. But the reason why people in the 20s were buying things on margin, buying stocks, was because it was easy money. It was looking good, right? It was looking very good. It's just like, hey, if I could go ahead and make, buy some stock, why not? I mean, so for example, like literally if your parents or even myself, if we would have bought stock, $1,000 of stock in Amazon back in the 90s, you'd be a millionaire, right? Today, if you were to buy stock in Amazon like 20 years ago, and people were taking that risk, they were too risky. Yeah. Okay. All right. So in order to deal with this, just write down what ends up another cause that gives us into greater depression is the Hawley-Smoot tariff. All you need to do is this: it raises tariffs to 60%. Right? Raises tariffs to 60%. The purpose of this is we want to get Americans to buy American goods, but this does not work. As a result of this, worldwide, it even leads into a greater depression, right? Worldwide, it leads to a greater depression. It seemed like a declaration of economic war on the entire world. It reversed a promising worldwide trend towards reasonable tariffs. And so basically, one of the things that you could talk about, a cause of this, is high tariffs led to nations not necessarily working together to help resolve the economy. So I'll repeat that. You could put the cause of the Great Depression is high tariffs led to nations not working together to help solve the economy. Yeah? Questions? Okay. I'm going to call on some people. What do you think is going on in this image right here? Let's go with Alexis.
It looks like they're all just looking at the car and like its expense, I think.
Okay. So what does he mean here, Alexis, by $100? $100 will buy this car, must have cash, lost everything on the stock market. Okay.
I don't know if I'm right, but I feel like it might be like teasing them kind of in a way, like $100 will buy this car, but obviously like no one has $100, I think.
Okay. That's a good guess. That's a good guess. Good guess. Sam, go for it.
I think what he's selling the car for $100 cash because he lost all his money on the stock market.
Yeah. So you're getting people that are basically selling their everyday items, right? I mean, this car is significantly worth more than $100, but they're so desperate that they're selling everything they have, right? So very good. What do you think is going on here? And this is a very popular image. What's going on here? Any guesses? Let's go with Lina. What do you think is going on?
I think that like everybody from all the men here, they're desperately trying to find a job in order to pay off or try and find money to they were just really desperate for money.
Yeah. So they're desperate for money. So what do you think so they all look like they're in line kind of, right? So, I mean, they're all desperate for money, but what do you think they're in line for? Any guesses what they might be in line for? So you kind of talk about this as an effect. Aisa, go for it. Oh, I think you got to unmute your mic.
I think that they're in line for are they in line for money?
Not money, so during this time the government's not giving you any money, right? So think about you know how just recently Trump gave a lot of families money, right? And so did Governor Newsom. They said if you need the resources, the government will provide it. Back then the government was like, nope. And I'll talk about Herbert Hoover. He didn't give anyone anything. Good guess though. Let's go with Alfredo. Go for it.
Well, to me, it looks like they're waiting for something, and I think that's work or labor work. Um,
Right on. So what people would do is they would show up to factories and they would hope that they would be picked for work. So something that you might see here is if, like, let's say you're all these people are lined up, I might go ahead and point to 5 people, and I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, you're all are working today, and then those 5 would be the only ones that would get paid. However, they're not guaranteed to come back the next day. They would have to show up in line again, and then myself as a factory owner, then I would say, all right, you 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's your turn to work. So there was no stability. You never knew how much money you were going to get, right? Questions on that? So like there's no, I mean, the government wasn't doing anything. That's one of the effects, immediate effects that you want to say is Herbert Hoover, the president, was not necessarily providing any resources for everybody, right? So I'll have you use this. You could read through the slide as causes. That kind of sums up everything. So what do you think is going on here? Very powerful image. So the president is Herbert Hoover. I like to call him Double H, right? What does this tell us about Herbert Hoover? You might have read about it. So what's going on here about Herbert Hoover? Any guesses? Let's go, Elika. What do you think?
So as previously said, how like President Herbert Hoover wasn't really doing anything to help the people, and as you can see based on the image, there's a lot of like it looks like these people kind of live in the margin of poverty where they're all gathered together, and the president isn't really lending a hand to help them.
Yeah, right on. So a couple things that you want to write down as effects, right? Is Herbert Hoover? He was a Republican president, and he believed in what we call rugged individualism. Rugged individualism. So he felt that the government should not help the people; that the people should be able to help themselves, right? And the reason why he thinks this, because he, you know, and to give him some credit, he was a self-made millionaire. I mean, he was a rags to riches story, and he felt like everyone could do the same. So when it came down to this whole Great Depression, his idea was, you know what? Don't worry, you all could rise up individually on your own and thrive and do well. Well, what you see here is, so you look at here, if you look at my arrow, this is actually Seattle, right? And what you're just noticing, you're kind of seeing the big city over here. This is all the people that are homeless. And what they've done is they've went ahead and they've built these towns in the outskirts of the city, right? And they're called Hoovervilles, named after President Hoover, right? They've all lost, they can't afford rent, mortgage, they've lost their homes. So they went ahead and have to kind of set up these encampments, right? Because the government's not going to help them. So one of the effects that you could bring up is Hoovervilles. People would lose their homes, and President Hoover did not give them that support, so they would go ahead and have to create these, right? How is this different from today? What do you think? I mean, because the economy is very bad. At this point, the economy was at 30% unemployment. We're not at that yet. But how is this different from today in terms of the support? Let's go, Elika.
I feel like it's different than before is that because right now I think the government enforces this one thing where it's like people can actually lay off with their rent as for now until they're financially stable.
Yeah. So one thing is, I mean, the government is giving more assistance now than it did with FDR. Or sorry, not FDR, Hoover, Herbert Hoover, right? Herbert Hoover was kind of like, whatever, let you all do your own thing. But now what we're seeing is we're kind of seeing a little bit more, we're seeing more government aid today. I mean, it could be argued that it's maybe not enough. Some people will say it's maybe too much. But back then, Great Depression, early stages, there was no aid, right? It's different because now we have, yeah, you're right. Now we have catastrophe pay. There is a little bit of a safety net now, right? Isabel says today homeless don't have a makeshift shelter like these, and if they were to find a spot to stay, the government wants them to move. Yeah, that's a very good point. Is there's not necessarily the support. Although right now, with the whole COVID-19 crisis and the pandemic, just in order to stop the spread, there's been a little bit more support that's provided. I guess you could say some of the encampments have been taken down. Right, Aisa, hand up. You want to share?
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so another thing, my grandfather's a military. One thing that they are doing as far as, properties, and just as for people who can't pay for their rent, they're saying that they can't move out until after the COVID-19.
Yeah.
They can, but as long as the person, the people living within the property, if they don't say anything, then the property owners can kick them out. But it is, as of right now, no one can be kicked out of their home.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that that's really good for our government, because there are a lot of people who have lost their jobs, and there are people who are raising the rent because they feel that they need to raise the rent to bring in a certain amount of money for their families. And I think that that's just something good, because even my papa, he was telling me about a situation where a homeowner wasn't trying to go and get the money, wasn't trying to give a family back their money for the down payment, and something like that. And he was just telling them that they need to press the lottery. And he gave them some. He told them that they didn't have to leave, but he told them that if they ever told because the guy that didn't want to give them their money, he works with. So he told them, if you ever told my colleague that I told you this, I would deny it. But he told them that they didn't have to leave, and they could let him know that, and he would give them their money and probably more if they left. But they ended up staying, and now they have a place to stay. So it's just things like that I think are very helpful. And that's all I wanted to share.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so this is after Hoover's presidency, because Hoover was, I mean, in fairness to Hoover, at first he was kind of like, we're not going to do anything. Then he started to do things. And then after that, he lost to Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the election. But I think, Aisha, you bring up a point, is that there are some states, like California, I would say, has done a pretty solid job of providing some support for people, right? They're flexible with rent. They're flexible with mortgage during this pandemic. However, there are other states that aren't necessarily like that, right? I mean, back then, Great Depression, Hoover was like nothing, right? He's a minimalist in terms of providing support, okay? So let's take a look at this cartoon. And this is actually Hoover right here. It says, yes, indeed, I can sympathize with anybody about to lose their home. And he has what we has here. It says home loan bill. So eventually he decides that he is going to try to help people. However, what do you notice? It says eviction threat, March 4. It says Roosevelt, and it says the White House. So what do you think is going on here? So I'll repeat that. This is Hoover. It says home loan bill, so he's starting to give it to the people. And he says, yes, indeed, I can sympathize with anybody who's about to lose their home. And then here it says eviction, the White House, signed March 4th, inauguration, Franklin Roosevelt. So what do you think is going on in this cartoon? Any idea? Any guesses? Yeah, he is being evicted, right? Hoover is. And why is Hoover being evicted? What do you think? What could be a reason why he is evicted? Yep, he is not president because he loses, right? People are not happy with his policy, so they're going to go ahead. So he goes ahead and he starts providing some support for people, for the government, or for people that need it. But eventually it's too little, too late. So when you're looking at this eviction notice, it's like, hey, you're voted out of office. See ya. Goodbye. Right? So we get our next presidents. I'll leave this up for you guys to kind of discuss what, it sums up everything that I went over about Hoover. Feel free to look back at that. But the next president that we get is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which you guys read about. Okay. So what we'll do is so I'm going to have you guys watch this. I'm just going to watch 5 minutes. It puts it into context. Take notes on what do we know about Roosevelt. So just watch the video. Don't worry about this Due Friday. That's old. And what does this tell us about Roosevelt? So just take notes on Roosevelt. And this could be the effects of the Depression. Here we go.
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Here was this aristocrat from Dutchess County, confined to a wheelchair, Harvard educated, but because of his almost innate sense of communication skills and the medium of radio, he was transported into the living rooms of almost every home in America. And in our household, FDR was a demigod. He was the voice that always gave them hope. My parents really worshipped FDR. And it was not just because of policies, they felt connected to him because of that great warm radio voice and that amazing ability that he had to speak directly to the fears and the hopes of the American people.
I can assure you that it is safer for you to keep your money in a reopened bank than to keep it under the mattress.
FDR and the Great Depression and the New Deal was an amazing time because FDR was about establishing hope, trying to bring hope back to life for a people that caught in this unbelievably chaotic period of economic chaos and stress.
In a lot of ways, FDR was actually an extremely unlikely figure to become a sort of moral and visionary leader in the ways that he did. Now, I think there's a great myth of FDR that he came into office, the country rallied around him, and the Depression was eventually solved. Now, that's not true. FDR was hated passionately by large portions of the population, and yet he did something really significant in those first months. First of all, he acted, and he acted in significant ways, and he came in saying, we can whip this thing, and whether or not he quite did it in those first months, he brought dramatic new ideas to the table and really did upend a lot of assumptions and make the idea that change really was possible a reality in many ways.
This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper.
Anytime we examine the New Deal, the legislation that FDR initiated as swiftly as he took the oath of office, you have to put it in the context of what had come before. We'd had a run of Republican pro-business presidents of the United States. Herbert Hoover was one of them, Cal Coolidge was another one, obviously. FDR came along and determined that something much bolder was needed to save the country, to provide a kind of a lifeboat, if you will, legislatively. So the New Deal was a real upheaval of everything that had gone before. And interestingly, the Republicans in Congress were willing to go along because the country was in such desperate shape. The idea of Social Security or public works programs, the WPA, the various other agricultural programs, which became critically important to the restoration of American agriculture and the modernization of it. The Republicans were willing to try anything at that point because we were on the precipice. The entire country could have gone down, and almost did, from an economic point of view.
All right, so what I'd like you guys to do is just quickly just type in chat box, what does this video tell us about Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his effects on the Great Depression? I think that video gives us the big picture, and I'm going to give you the details. Very good, Alexis. He gives people hope. I would agree with that. He definitely does. Well, let's get anything else. What else did he do? So maybe some terms that came. He gave people hope through the radio, right? What else did he do? Because remember, Hoover did nothing, or barely anything. I feel bad because I actually know his great-great-grandkid. Yeah, actions speak louder than words. Unlike Hoover, he took action, right? What were some of his actions that he took? The New Deal. The New Deal is what we're going to talk about. So you got to make sure you know that term. I want to see that in the effects. The New Deal. Very good. Other things that he did that were part of this New Deal. So how did he help stimulate the economy? What were some things that he did? Social Security, yep. Yeah. Yeah, so I went to I was in sixth grade class. I believe it was his great or great grade. Yeah. He put people back to work. So those were some things that he did. And those what you want to write down are the effects of FDR's policies, right? The cause of the Great Depression, the effects, and one thing that you can bring up is FDR's policies were some of these things that help resolve these effects. So I'm going to go through this, okay? So New Deal, 100 days, and FDR. Those are 3 vocabulary words that you need to know. He used government funds to put into banks. Excellent. He brought stability back into the banks. So key definition, remember you have this PowerPoint, it is in Schoology. What you need to know are the 100 days. The 100 days are FDR's first policies or first 100 days in office. And what he wants to do is he has 3 goals: relief, recovery, and reform. He wants to make sure that he is going to go ahead and kind of help the economy relief, help people recover, but also change things so this is not going to happen again. So I'll repeat that. 3 R's, relief, recovery, and reform. That's his first 100 days, what are called the New Deal. He's passing all this legislation to provide relief, help people right now, right? Help them recover. You know, we can't just be like, hey, we're going to help you today, but tomorrow, you know, you're not going to be okay. But also reform, make sure way down the road that everything's okay. And we still have some of these policies in place, right? Social Security, right? So for example, when you're older and you retire, the government's going to give you money to help you support yourself. That still exists today because of FDR, right? For example, President Trump, he gave a stimulus package of $1,200 to people that need it. That would be more relief, right? Because it's helping us short term. If the government were to come in and say, hey, we'll give you $1,000 for every month for the next 5-6 months, that would be recovery. It's helping people long term. Reform would be something along the terms of, hey, we have to make sure we have enough measures where we're not going to get a pandemic again. Questions at all about that? If there are no questions, type no. Okay. So here's something. Roosevelt, he has must legislation, gave him power. So what I mean by this is Congress basically let him do whatever he wanted to do. Republicans and Democrats, they were agreeing and they were passing all of these laws. So understand that. Is he was the president, but Congress at this time in the early stages supported everything that he would do. Okay. One of the things that you want to make sure is these are key terms that you can bring up: the Glass-Steagall and Emergency Banking Relief Act. What do you notice that's going on in this chart? What do you notice that's going on here? So this is the bank failures after the Glass-Steagall Bank Act, as well as, or Glass-Steagall Banking Reform, as well as Emergency Banking Relief Act. So you could use this as an effect. Remember, he takes office, right around, I mean, this passes 93 and 94. So 94, that's when he comes into office. What do you notice about the amount of banks that are closing once he comes into office? What do you notice about that? It decreases, right? Yeah. So one of the things that you want to write down in your essay is that FDR, he brings stability back into the banks. People start to have faith in the banks again, right? That the amount of banks closing down decreases, right? He closes banks that aren't suitable and sustainable for people. Yeah, and what he ends up doing is, he makes sure that the banks are stable. Because back then, if you went to the bank and you wanted your money, what would happen? So, you know, old man Burba comes running to the bank. I'm like, I want my $10,000. What's the bank going to do? Can they pay me? Could they pay me? You wouldn't get it. You're right. It's gone. So what he does is he passes this. 2 things that you want to bring up are effects. First off, Emergency Bank Relief Act. I'm just going to go over this because you could, it's in your presentation. He invested president with the power to regulate the bank. So he could go ahead and he could regulate the bank. The president has now the power to go ahead and control it. And what he does is this, and this still exists today, that banks need to be FDIC approved. When you see that, that means Federal Deposit Insurance Corporations. So what this means today, if a bank like Chase, Wells Fargo, most banks now, it is FDIC approved, so that means that your money is safe. If it is in a savings account or in a checking account, if it is FDIC approved, that means if I want to go ahead and take my money out, it has to be there, that the government will ensure that I get that money back. They did not have this before. So what he does is he says, because he wants people to go ahead and start putting their money in the banks because they're keeping it under their mattress, they say, we are going to go ahead and put a deposit. If you put $5,000 in there, we will make sure you get that money back. So people go ahead, start taking their money out of their mattresses and putting it back in the banks. So give some stability back to the banks. This is a very important policy. Questions about that? Any questions? Good. So next thing he also does is, sorry guys. I don't know why this is not, I skipped something, sorry. So one thing I also want you to write down, because my slide is not working, is ABC agencies. Put it there. Or alphabet agencies. I spelled alphabet wrong. And what this does is creates public jobs for people. One of the things that he might have people do is, for example, they might paint murals, right? One of the agencies that they would paint murals and it would give people jobs, right? You're looking at people that work on dams, right? They will work on a dam, that would give them a job. Work on roads, right? Work on highways or freeways. He's investing in these public works, which is now giving people jobs. Questions? No? So you could put that as an effect. What Hoover did was through his alphabet agencies, he's protecting the people. We'll talk about the Dust Bowl next time. He provides some support for that. Yeah. But I do have a song for you guys. So let's see. I'm going to put a link on here. The lyrics are at the bottom. Let's see if you guys can follow along. Okay. See if this works. All right. So the lyrics are at the very bottom of the page. I'm going to play it.
Is that you and your wife?
That is my wife and I. So see if you could understand the lyrics. Here we go. All right, here we go. A little bourbon in the house because I'm quarantined. This song goes out to my history buffs, my history fanatics, AP, IB on level. More importantly, my seniors. You're not forgotten. You never will be. We're in this together. We got the beautiful Ashley B here. You were able to get through the Great Depression and World War II. We got this. See if you can tie the vocab words in with the lyrics. Rest in peace, Matt Miller. I never take a day off. Work around the clock. Stock market got me laid off. Screw tariffs so high. Exports start to die off. Taxes so high, can't see the rise of Adolf. Now I got these flappers all breaking up the sweat. Cause every time I speak up, Republicans incorrect. And I learned it from the best, always dressing something fresh. Looking for a little dime, some bread and place to rest. Yes, they heard Double H was a mess. But now I'm rocking laws that ain't passed by Congress. Fast forward time, let's move to FDR next. Trying to make it work out, 100 days are all set. Used to hate the bank, but now they got nets. 5,000 insured, got me vested like I got no debt. ABC agencies, I got a job now. It's all Franklin boy, make my family proud. Make him say dust, make him say bowl. Congress tell me yes, the same ones that tell you no. Whoa, I just ain't an average Joe. You deal way above this flow. Get it?
No matter where life takes me, find me with a smile. Pursued to be happy, only laughing like a child. Never thought life would be this sweet. Got me cheesing from cheek to cheek. Ay. And I ain't gotta wait for nothing, cause that just ain't my style. Life couldn't get better. We're gonna get through this together. together.
If it ain't about a dream, then it ain't about the deal. No more 4 weeks without a job and a good meal. Imagination, making Congress legislation, employment that we're chasing, plus World War II we're facing. Fast forward today, let's rework the conversation. Factories closed, working from home. Employment so high, you're not alone. Work around the clock, nurses need a day off. Disease so bad, schools need to take off. All parks closed, we can't even play golf. Now I got these young kids breaking up a sweat. We all need to stay home, is that what's correct? And I learned it from the best, always dressing something fresh. Trying to pass time and hope we have enough tests. Was it President Trump that's responsible for this mess? Sporting these masks, can you go back to school yet?
No matter where life takes me, find me with a smile. Pursued to be happy, only laughing like a child. Never thought life would be this sweet. Got me cheesing from cheek to cheek. Ay. And I ain't gotta wait for nothing, cause that just ain't my style. Life couldn't get better. We're gonna get through this together. Ay.
All right, so let's see if you guys could get the lyrics. All right, yeah, so it was a fun time. She's a good singer. She's a great singer, actually. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. But all of these do have some historical relevance, right? So, any thoughts? We have 3 minutes left. So, pick a lyric. What do you think it means? So, feel free to either raise your hand or write in the chat box, and we'll call it a day. But I hope you guys enjoyed that song. There's a lot of relevance to today as well, but pick something in here. What do you think it means? Yeah, very good. So I mentioned 100 days, right? What about those 100 days? Trying to make it work out. 100 days are all set. You're right. That means FDR went ahead and put those 100 days in when it was successful. Anything else? Very good. What do you think I mean by smooth tariff so high, exports start to die off? Yeah, ABC agencies, how they all got a job. Yeah. Good. 100 days, safe, secure, about money and jobs. Taxes so high, can't see the rise of Adolf, right? Who ends up coming to power as a result of the Great Depression? Hitler. Yeah, working around the clock, stock market got me laid off. Yep. I mean, I lose my job as a result of the stock market crashing. How about this? Because every time I speak up, Republicans incorrect. What is that referring to? Who's incorrect? Who was a Republican? Name the president that was a Republican. Yeah, very good. Hoover. Yep. And I learned from the best, always dressing something fresh. That's actually just not a historic line. And yes, they heard Double H was a mess. Who's Double H? Double H was Herbert Hoover, right? Excellent. Let's see what else we got here. Used to hate the bank, but now they got nets. 5,000 insured, got me vesting like I got no debt. What is that referring to? That's a tricky one. Used to hate the bank, but now they got nets. 5,000 insured, got me vesting like I got no debt. So what's going on with you? Yeah, excellent, Raina. Bank closures and New Deal security nets. People going ahead and starting reinvesting that. Very good. And then all of this stuff is relevant to today, right? Sporting these masks, can we go back to school yet? Was it President Trump that got us in this mess, right? Virus so bad, schools need to take off, right? FDR made them trust banks and only the best day in business, as well as providing insurance. Excellent, very good. So you guys get it. Well done. We are at 1:30 exactly. That is it for, or 11:30. Sheesh, my time is off. But that is it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this song. I mean, feel free to listen to it again, and or not. But I'll have more rap songs for you guys before the year ends. But there is really no homework this week. Just play catch up, right? Just play catch up. I'll post on Monday what reading I want you guys to have done, but just catch up on assignments, and I'll make sure to get you guys some feedback. All right.
And can you also repeat both essay prompts again?
So the and remember the essay's problem not due, so I haven't crafted the other one. But if you open up the PowerPoint, here it is. It's the one that you could do is explain the cause and effects of the Great Depression. The other one will be World War II. I have to craft it still. Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for listening. My wife says thank you for, yeah, she's a great singer. So.
Yeah, do more raps.
Yeah, it took us, so we recorded it last night. That took us probably about 3 hours to record. And then wrote it. I actually wrote it 2-3 weeks ago. And then we just never recorded it. And then we made some changes to yesterday and then throughout the day. It's actually a lot longer, but I had to cut it because it didn't fit within the length of the Mac Miller song. So, yep. But yeah, so that's it. All I got for you guys. Type here so I can make sure. You know, I don't know where they went. I think they weren't happy that I was recording that song last night, and then I think that they're just like they're throwing a tantrum and they're just sitting in the room. So, but next time I'll make sure I get them out for you guys. So.
Your dogs don't like you singing or something?
No, they just don't like it when they don't get attention. So the whole time we were singing and like recording that, they were just like throwing a fit, barking. And I'm like, y'all gotta be quiet. You know, we're trying to record. So yeah. So now I think they're not too happy. But I'm gonna go take them on a long walk in a bit. So, but all right, that's all I got for you guys. Enjoy. See ya. Shoot me an email. You know, if you need any help, you know my office hours.